If you're following this case, watch it until the very end, because the images coming out of the courtroom today are among the most striking moments Washington has seen in the last decade. No one can underestimate John Kennedy. Those who tried to do so have regretted it. This Republican senator representing Louisiana is, at first glance, a colorful character. He is sharp-tongued, sometimes witty, never lost his Southern accent, and is the type who sometimes tells stories instead of asking straightforward questions. His opponents sometimes don't take him seriously. The media sometimes ignores him. This is known to be Kennedy's greatest advantage, because when no one is watching him, Kennedy works secretly. He rummages through archives, he reads files, he notes footnotes that others overlook, and when the time comes, he puts things on the table that make everyone wonder, how did he get this? Today was the time. The hearing began routinely. The Senate Judiciary Committee had summoned FBI Director Kash Patel again. The agenda? Budget discussions, operational reporting, standard oversight questions. Patel arrived with his usual preparation. He had lawyers with him, pre-approved answers, a bureaucratic shield of language designed to cover every angle. The first hour and a half went as expected. Questions came. Answers came. Nothing exploded. Nothing collapsed. Cameras rolled. Minutes were taken. The room grew a little tense. Then it was John Kennedy's turn, and the room stopped being tense. Now the truth was beginning to emerge. When Kennedy began to speak, his voice was slow and measured as always. His Southern accent seemed to lengthen and soften his sentences a little. But what lay beneath was not soft. "Director," Kennedy said, "I'm going to ask you a short question first." Patel was ready. "Does the FBI have any visual material, meaning photographs and video recordings, related to the Epstein investigation?" Patel answered, quickly, clearly, as if he had prepared his answer in advance. "There are various materials related to the Epstein investigation. Most of these are confidential and cannot be shared with the public as they could affect ongoing legal proceedings." Kennedy nodded. "Various materials. Yes. Are there photographs among them?" "Visual materials may be among the documents collected as part of the investigation." "May be or are." Patel paused for a second. "Are. Thank you." Kennedy wrote something down. A long, silent moment passed, and then he reached under the table. A yellow envelope. It looked like a standard-sized, unsealed, plain envelope. Kennedy opened the envelope. He pulled out several photographs, color prints, clear images. He didn't hold them up to the cameras. He held them up to Patel. "Director, do you recognize these photos?" The room held its breath at that moment because something changed on Patel's face. His eyes remained fixed on the photos. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, dozens of cameras, dozens of journalists, dozens of politicians saw the same thing. Patel recognized those photos. "Director?" Patel tore his eyes away from the photos. He looked at Kennedy. "Senator, I need to know where these images came from." "I'll tell you where they came from." Kennedy placed the envelope on the table. "These photos are from the FBI's own archives. The file numbers are on the back, from the visual evidence catalog of the Epstein investigation. They bear the official FBI seal." One of Patel's lawyers leaned forward. Kennedy raised his hand. "No need to whisper to your client, counsel. My question is very simple. Director, are these photos in the FBI's possession?" Patel swallowed. "Regarding classified material to the public? Yes or no? In this context, yes or no, Director?" Silence. Kennedy waited. He didn't rush. With Southern patience, he waited, unmoving. Finally, Patel spoke. "These materials are available as part of the investigation." "Available," Kennedy repeated. "So, yes." The second question was heavier than the first. "Director, have the locations seen in these photos been identified by the FBI?" Patel did not answer. "Let me rephrase the question. Has it been determined that the locations in these photos are connected to Epstein's properties?" Again, silence. "Director, this is a yes or no question." Patel looked at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded slightly. "Some locations have been identified, yes. Some." Kennedy raised his eyebrows. Are there any locations that haven't been identified? The investigation process. Are there or aren't there? The identification of some locations is ongoing. Kennedy wrote something down. He wrote at length. The room waited. Director, he finally said, when did these photos come into the FBI's possession? Patel replied, it may not be appropriate to share the exact dates with the public. It may not be appropriate. Kennedy took the envelope. He looked at the photos again. So, have the faces in these photos been identified? The room froze. This question carried a different weight, because location identification was a technical matter. Facial recognition was not. Facial recognition meant finding names, and names were the moment everything would change. Kennedy knew this. Everyone in the room knew this. Patel knew this too. Director, have the identities of the people in these photos been determined? Patel's hands crossed on the table. Some individuals have been identified. How many? To share that information with the public, share it with this committee? Not the public. This committee has constitutional oversight authority. How many? Patel took a deep breath. Providing numerical data could compromise the integrity of the investigation. Kennedy closed the envelope. He placed it on the table, and for the first time during Kennedy's entire interrogation, his voice changed. The humor was gone. The softness of his Southern accent was gone. What remained was a stark and harsh reality. Director, let me tell you this. I'm from Louisiana, a small state, but a state with big stories, and we have a saying there. The best way to hide something is to make it visible, meaning put it somewhere everyone can see, but in a way that no one looks. Patel waited silently. The FBI has these photos, officially in their archives, with a file number, a seal, a catalog. Anyone can see them, but no one does, because no one knows these photos exist, or it's thought they shouldn't know. Kennedy took the envelope. He placed the photos one by one on the table, still holding them toward Patel, not the cameras. These photos are in this room today. They are now on record. They are now in the congressional transcripts, and the faces in them can no longer remain in the identified but undisclosed category. He paused, because now the question everyone will ask is, who knows these faces, and why are they silent? Patel had dodged dozens of questions up to that point. He had given technical answers to every technical question. He had dismissed every document claim with procedural objections. At every moment of cornering, he had used the phrase whispered by his legal team. But no procedure worked against Kennedy's photos, because photos could not be defended with words. Photos either existed or they didn't, and these existed. With the FBI seal, the document number, the official catalog record, Kennedy moved on to the third question. Director, have these photos ever been shared with any congressional committee before? Patel's answer was slow in coming. Certain materials have been presented to authorized committee members. Authorized committee members, meaning not this committee, due to confidentiality. This committee is the Senate Judiciary Committee. We have oversight of the FBI. And according to what you've told me, these photos are in the official visual evidence catalog of the Epstein investigation. But they weren't shared with this committee. The classification level, who decided not to share them? No answer. Who signed off on that decision? No response. Director, who decided these photos would be kept secret from this committee? Patel looked at his lawyer. The lawyer shook his head slightly. These types of classification decisions through the corporate review process. So you did. Kennedy's voice was flat. You made the decision. The director's office. You made the decision, Director, to keep the photos related to the FBI's Epstein investigation secret from this committee within your own authority, with your own signature. He paused. And the faces identified in these photos, were they the reason for that decision? The room changed after that question, because this question was no longer a technical question. It was not a procedural question. It was not a bureaucratic question. This question was the essence of everything. The photos had been kept secret. The faces in them had been identified. And who those faces were could explain why they were hidden. Patel did not answer. Kennedy waited. 30 seconds passed. A minute. The room didn't even breathe. And finally, Kennedy took the envelope, put the photos inside, and closed it. Thank you, Director. This silence is also on record. If you don't want to miss this development and are curious about the answers to these questions, stay tuned, because the faces in those photos are not the end of this story, but the beginning. When the hearing ended, Kennedy was one of the last to leave the room. Reporters waiting in the hallway began asking questions. Kennedy stopped. He didn't walk. He didn't run. He still had the envelope in his hand. He said one sentence: "These photos are now in the congressional record, and the faces in them will one day be revealed to everyone." Then he walked away. Over 250 victims. Files that were said to be never for years. And now photos with identified faces but undisclosed. Every never comes out one day. Every hidden face becomes visible one day. When John Kennedy placed that envelope on the table today, he didn't just show Patel the photos. He showed him how time works. Things that are hidden cannot remain hidden forever. Voices that are silenced cannot remain silenced forever. And the answer I can't explain cannot remain the answer forever. Kennedy placed the envelope on the table. Patel looked at the photos, and in those 3 seconds, everyone saw. There was something to hide. And now everyone knew. The rest of this story is yet to come. Stay tuned so you don't miss anything happening in Washington, because the faces in that envelope are not the last question in this story.